Modern warfare is sold to us as a masterpiece of precision. We are told that satellites track every heartbeat in real time, and drones can scan entire continents in seconds. For decades, this created a comforting belief: if you can see everything, you can control everything. But here's where it gets interesting. Take those same billion-dollar systems, the ones tested in the sterile labs of Virginia, and place them inside a dense tropical canopy with a soldier like Staff Sergeant Marcus Thorne. Within minutes, that belief in control starts to vanish. Most people miss this. The systems we trust are built for clarity, but the jungle is the architecture of chaos. If you don't understand this environment, you don't just lose your technological advantage, you lose your direction. What happens to a commander when the screen he's trusted his whole life suddenly goes blank? This matters more than it sounds, because the map of global conflict is changing. We are moving away from the open deserts of the last century and into layered, unpredictable green hells: the Philippines, Central Africa, the Amazon. This next part sounds obvious, but almost nobody fully absorbs it. Modern warfare depends on visibility, not just for hitting a target, but for human confidence. When a soldier like Lieutenant Mateo Ramos can see the horizon, he moves with a decisive rhythm. But when visibility doesn't just degrade, it collapses. The entire rhythm of modern warfare breaks down immediately. In the jungle, your world isn't measured in miles, it's measured in the 3 steps directly in front of you. Let's look at a tiny fact that changes everything. In open terrain, your sight lines are hundreds of meters. In the jungle, that shrinks to 5, sometimes less. You aren't just seeing less, you are losing certainty. You stop reacting to data and start reacting to fragments: a snapped twig, a shadow that doesn't match the leaves, a movement that your brain tells you isn't real. Most people miss this. When certainty drops, the human heart rate spikes and decision-making slows to a crawl. When the mind slows down, control slips through your fingers like water. Now consider the invisible layer: communications. We assume the network is a god, always present, but the jungle is where gods go to die. Trees physically absorb radio waves, the terrain bounces GPS signals until they're meaningless, and the constant tropical moisture literally eats into the electronics of a multi-million-dollar drone. Suddenly, units that were supposed to be a single, coordinated organism begin to operate in disconnected pieces. This next part sounds small, but it changes the soul of a soldier. When the signal dies, trust in the system dies with it. Thorne and Ramos can no longer call for help. They stop relying on the network and start relying on pure, raw instinct. Most people assume the jungle is just a backdrop, but it is an active combatant. It is never neutral. The heat drains energy 3 times faster than a temperate climate. The 90% humidity turns a standard uniform into a lead weight, and the relentless rain turns every tactical movement into an agonizing effort. Your weapons, designed for precision, now require constant, obsessive attention just to keep from jamming. Modern militaries are optimized for efficiency, but the jungle demands something the West often forgets: endurance. Even the most elite units slow down, not because they are weak, but because they are fighting the very air they breathe. Then there is the psychological weight, the part that's impossible to measure on a spreadsheet. In the jungle, you are never fully aware. Every rustle is a threat. Every silence is an ambush. Over days and weeks, that constant red line of uncertainty builds a pressure in the brain. Most people miss this. In these green cathedrals, the battle isn't physical, it's cognitive. When the information is incomplete, your mind fills the gaps, and the jungle ensures those gaps are filled with fear. This is where the experts start to fail. But here is where the story shifts, and most people miss this. While many forces struggle to adapt, some never had to. They were born inside the fog. In the Philippines, the environment is a fragmented jungle, a labyrinth of islands and mountains where movement is never linear and visibility is never stable. Here, Lieutenant Ramos doesn't fight the jungle, he moves with it. The Philippine doctrine doesn't try to impose a rigid technological grid over the trees. Instead, it builds the entire system around the certainty of uncertainty. They didn't force the doctrine into the jungle wrote the doctrine itself. The most striking difference is scale. Big armies love big units because they mean big power, but big units require constant coordination, and as we've seen, coordination dies in the heat. So the Philippines flipped the script. They prioritize small, independent teams, men who don't wait for a satellite link to tell them what to do. They are trained to decide in the moment. The goal isn't to maintain a grand, centralized control, it's simply to maintain function. Here, the jungle is used. A sound isn't a distraction, it's a sensor. A vine isn't an obstacle, it's a concealment. This isn't just surviving, it's an inversion of power. This creates a fascinating ego inversion. In a digital world, the advanced force is king, but in the jungle, that same force becomes a prisoner of the systems that no longer work. Meanwhile, the smaller, low-tech force continues to operate normally. The advantage hasn't disappeared, it is shifted. This next part matters. As the world becomes less predictable, the elite are finding they have to become the learners. The battlefield is no longer a chess match, it's a street fight in the dark. So what actually works? Not bigger systems, not heavier equipment, but awareness, decentralized decision-making, and the humility to adapt. The belief that one system works everywhere is the real strategic weakness. If we don't adjust, we risk entering a future where our greatest strengths become our heaviest chains. But here is the deeper layer. There is a specific tactical system, refined over decades, that shows exactly how to master this chaos. If you want to understand the replica method and how to win when the screens go dark, watch the next video. And if you felt the system fail in your own life, drop a comment below, because this conversation is just getting started.